And this immediately brings me to the next topic, the topic about DTRs, or data transfer rules. What are data transfer rules? Well, if we have a look at our wizard, we actually noticed already that when I, for example, choose here one of our sources, automatically it is filtering down specific resources and filling in other information. Well, this is done with a DTR script, and it's transferring data from one block to another block. So by selecting, for example, a particular source, so it's a resource, it is transferring this data to other blocks, and because it's transferred, it is filtering down the other resources. This is one example. Another example is, we could also see on the demodulating block, when I change here my channel, automatically this information is also updated. So data from this block is transferred to the next block. How is this done in DataMiner? Well, everything starts with the service definition. If I go to my service definition to my properties this time, I can add, or I have to add, this property with the name data transfer rules configuration, and you need to add here a particular JSON. So let me copy this JSON to a text editor. If you do that in Notepad++, you have that nice plugin to format your JSON. You have to specify, first of all, the script name that needs to be executed when a trigger happens. What is a trigger? You can have two types of trigger. You can either trigger based on the when you choose a resource from a dropdown, or when you change a profile parameter. And that's also what we see over here. We have a bunch of triggers. You can define a trigger for each of your nodes inside your service definition. So you need to specify the node label. This is the label name that you defined earlier over here. So for each of your blocks, you can define a trigger. It's not mandatory to have a trigger for each of your nodes, only when you when something needs to happen, when some data needs to transfer from one node to another, I am making here this trigger. And then you have the trigger type, which can either be resource or parameter. In case you choose parameter, you need to specify which parameter that should trigger this script over here. So in our case, you see that we have a trigger for our satellite, for our antenna, and also here for our source. So as soon as I change my source resource, this one will be triggered and it will transfer some data to the other blocks. Now let's have another look at this automation script. So basically I copied the automation script here from the system. This is my automation script. It has some input data that is automatically filled by the Bookings Manager application, and I copied it here to my Visual Studio. So let's have a look what this script is doing. So first of all, it's reading the input data, my script parameter, and it is retrieving the bookings configuration. Now the next step is a switch case, and it has a case for each of my triggers. Each of my triggers corresponding to the ones over here. And let me maybe go immediately to the source trigger. So as soon as I change my source resource, this one will be triggered and this method will be executed. So let's step into it. And basically you can see here that the first thing that it's doing, it is retrieving the satellite source resource. So the one that was chosen in the wizard and that triggered the change or this script. Once I have my satellite source, it is retrieving the profile instance that is matching with that chosen resource. It's doing this with the profile manager helper. And then it's basically getting all the other blocks on which some data needs to be set. on which some parameters need to be set. And one of them is the demodulator block. It's retrieving this one first, then the satellite block, the matrix input block. And after that, it is setting all the necessary parameters on all of these blocks. So basically, it's transferring data from its own block, from the source block, to the demodulator, the satellite, and the matrix input block. And that's done over here. You see it's setting parameters on the demodulator block, demod.set parameter. This time it's the RF frequency, and with what value? Well, it's the value that comes from the profile parameter that was retrieved from the source block. Same for the polarization, also on the demodulator block. The matrix input, the polarization was set, and so on and so on. And you see that the parameters that are set, these can be perfectly the capability parameters. So if you set a capability parameter via the script, automatically the dropdown for that particular block, in my case it is the demodulator block, will be filtered down for only the parameters that are matching that capability, basically. Now another example, let me scroll up again, is this one here, the one from the demodulating trigger. So as soon as something changes on the demodulating block, this method is being triggered. And if I step into this one, first I have another switch. Because I had two triggers on this block, I had here one when a resource changes, and also one when the RF frequency or the polarization is changing. I have another switch. I check what is the trigger type. Is it a parameter that was changed, or is it a resource that was changed? In case of a parameter, let's step into this one. It is again checking if it's coming from the polarization or from the frequency, and setting the information on the L-band matrix input accordingly. So this way you can transfer data from one block to another block. This data can be configuration parameters, can be capability parameters, and as soon as you set your capability parameters on another block, the resources are filtered accordingly. In my case, just to finalize this topic, for example, I change my channel over here, automatically my satellites are being filtered down, automatically these parameters are set. Some of them are configuration parameters, some of them are capabilities, and because these are set automatically, my demodulating resources are filtered accordingly.